You're listening to the Hazard Ground Podcast with service members from across the military sharing their stories of combat and survival. And now, here's your host, Mark Zeno.
Welcome into the Hazard Ground Podcast. As always, we appreciate you joining us each and every week. Hope everybody had a wonderful holiday season. A new year is on the horizon, and we're wishing you the best in 2020 from the Hazard Ground Podcast. And certainly, we want you guys to help continue to grow this thing as we approach our third anniversary coming up here in a couple of weeks. It'll be 3 years of telling stories on the Hazard Ground. We can't thank you guys enough for being part of the Hazard Ground community and continuing to support everything we have going on. So continue to support our sponsors. Go to our webpage, hazardground.com, click on the sponsors tab. If you got some belated Christmas shopping or holiday shopping you need to get done, still a great place to go and spend it with our sponsors, as well as check out our reading list, the perfect gift for the reader in your family if you still have to go get one. And certainly, maybe in 2020, you start a resolution to start reading some more books and check out the great stories from the authors and the people who have appeared here on the Hazard Ground Podcast. Please follow us on all the social media sites, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Make sure you guys interact with us there as well. We love the feedback that you guys always give us. Even if it's about little stuff, technical glitches, something you don't like, let us know. We'll do our best to take care of everything. We love the feedback that we get and certainly love that you guys are so active in the Hazard Ground community. Don't forget about a promotion with Amazon, still going on. It's not just a holiday thing. Go to our website, hazardground.com, click on that Amazon banner, do all your normal Amazon shopping. We'll get a percentage of what you guys spend, and we donate it right back to some of the amazing charities and foundations and organizations we've heard featured here on the Hazard Ground. So you're helping out vets all over America just by going to hazardground.com. Once again, hope everybody has a real kick-ass 2020, and let's get on to this week's episode. Joining us this week is a retired Marine Corps corporal who had 2 deployments, one to Iraq, one in Afghanistan, and ultimately that last deployment to Afghanistan led to the amputation of his right leg below the knee. He is Kionte Storey, joining us here on the Hazard Ground Podcast. Kionte, welcome, man. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. How's it going?
It's well. Normally, we ask people to start out by telling us how they got into the military, and obviously that's important. But I think our audience also needs to know a little bit about your background from your childhood, because it's very uncommon, and I think it's what led you ultimately to the Marine Corps. But let's kind of start there as a kid and as a young kid. Tell us how you grew up, because I think that's important.
Yeah. So I grew up in Stockton, California, and upon birth, I was handed over to my second cousins. Try not to get confused in this story. And that was due to what was in my system. I was a preemie, and just kind of how the system worked. So I was handed over to my second cousins upon birth. So I actually don't know my biological mother nor father. As I progressed through life, went into foster care around the age of 10, like officially into foster care, where I think was, that shift for my childhood where, I knew that my mom that was raising me, my second cousin technically, to me, she was my mom. Those were my sisters, my brothers. And to go into foster care, I think, I'll be honest, I cried my first night in foster care. Let's just get that out the way. Because it's a hard moment, moment for me. But, going through middle school, high school, bully, whatnot, kind of just detached, which now looking back in hindsight makes a lot of sense going through that time frame. But that ultimately led me to want to join the military, mostly just to get out of Stockton, to get away.
Right.
So as soon as I graduated, I was, ready to go into the Marine Corps. But initially I was actually not initially joining the Marine Corps when I first started looking. I was actually almost about to join the Army, which I'm glad I did not.
Easy though. You're talking to an Army guy here. No, but I mean, so when you talk about detachment and everything, as a kid growing up, did you ever have a desire to find your biological parents?
No.
Why not?
I just had this conversation with someone who also is a foster kid. And for me, I didn't have the desire because I knew who raised me I knew who I wanted to be my mom. And so I didn't really break my neck to go out of my way and ask questions like, who's my mom? Because I wasn't clueless to, there being two moms. I wasn't clueless to me not knowing my biological mom or my father. I just didn't. I looked at it as, you know what? They know where I am. I don't know where they are. So they can come get me. They can come talk to me if they want to, but that never happened. That chance never came for whatever reason on their end. But there's no regret on my end, or there's no hatred, discontent. At this point, my biological mom is dead. That is a confirmed thing.
Okay.
And my father, I've honestly I truly never went out of my way to find nor ask, nothing. And so when I was 19, I was legally adopted by my second cousin who raised me from birth, and not adopted into foster care. So I was raised by the person who had me since I was 0 to 10, and who I was already calling my mom, my sister, my brothers, and whatnot, because that's who they were to me.
Right.
I didn't really care if you added someone else into the mix, but this is my mom, this is my sister, and whatnot.
Okay, so let me ask you a question real quick. How did you find out about your mother dying?
Oh, how did I find that one out, actually? I think, it was when I was actually deployed to Iraq. That's when I had my my half sisters and my half siblings reach out to me, and it was kind of a shock to me. They kind of reached out via, I think it was email, and I was like, oh, I don't even know you guys. And at this point, I'm 19.
Did you believe them when they reached out to you? You're like, were you skeptical at all?
Oh, I was very skeptical because at that point, you would have people kind of emailing you. I think there was like scams or whatnot going on. But they were like, saying some names and that I knew. And I'm like, okay. So I asked my mom, my sister, and they're like, oh yeah, these are your half sisters, blah, blah. And I've heard their nicknames before, but to have them reach out, I was just like, why now? What is the intent and purpose of this, And then they were just reaching out because I guess they finally were able to find the time to reach out, and was like, hey, we remember you when you were younger. We were actually all together at some point, from what they told me. But I guess at that time I had a little bit of, I wasn't really fully accepting to even get to know them. I was just like,
sure,
kind of past our time. We're adults. We kind of already have our own backgrounds. Knowing you, throwing you into the mix changes nothing, or it changes everything. So I had to decide how I wanted to approach that. And, I talked to my sister, and, I had nothing, like I said, I have nothing against them, but at the same time, I don't really care to be involved at this point in my life.
Sure.
Nothing personal. It's just, it's already established.
Right.
So most I want to do is like, hey, how are you doing? How'd you grow up? But no real bonding, I think, needs to pursue on that end. And that's just, like I said, it's just one, we're in different states. Two, it would just probably add another mixture into the pot that I don't feel like mixing.
No, and that's completely fair. I mean, again, no one's walking in your shoes, and that decision is completely personal to you. I'm legitimately curious about the background of all of it because, I think it leads to, you'll see where I'm going later as far as the Marine Corps is concerned. But there is a sense of family in the Marines that you get that's different than the sense of family at home. And, I think that is part of it. I think there is a sense of a different family in the Marines that, people gravitate towards.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
One more question on the family stuff. When your second cousin, who became your mom, who was raising you, sent you into foster care, what was that like? I mean, you were 10 years old at the time you said. I mean, you must have been able to grasp the concept of like, why don't you want me here? Like, how were you handling all that?
I handled that in the way that I felt I knew at that time and at that age. And like I said, being 10 years old, you're kind of more aware of what's happening, but you don't necessarily know why. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, that was another question someone asked me actually recently. And I never went back to want to know the true answer behind that, to be perfectly honest. I looked at it as, okay, here, you have a single mom raising all of her kids plus this one. And I'm in that age where I'm being a little bit more rebellious, lying, being a little bit more sneaky, not really, doing that great in school. Uh, you know, Teachers are calling my mom and she's working full time. So she's constantly busy. So the way I looked at it as, well, there's no one to watch me. There's no guidance. There's no, and I feared my mom, not saying there's no guidance. I feared the woman. Love her to death, but still I fear that woman. And which is respectfully so to me. But at the end of the day, there was no real, she was busy. The kids were busy in school. And here I'm the youngest. So I looked at it as, there needs to be more structure. And so foster care was somewhere I thought would be, what was the overall reason was to give me more structure. And Stockton isn't the greatest of areas. So it made more sense as I got older. It's like, I'm here because there needs to be structure in my life. But going into foster care, only made me disconnect even more.
Sure.
Or further. But at the end of the day, I think it was all good intent. And from that point on, I kind of just stuck to myself. And like I said, there's no resent on any end on my part. I tried my best to understand the situation, but at the same time, I never went back and truly asked my mom, because I can be like, hey, why did I go to foster care? I don't think I want to know that answer, just because I came to something that made the most sense for me in my mind. And if that was changed in a different way, I would hold probably some resentment, possibly. But, we never know until I ask, which I won't.
Right. No, and I think sometimes you don't ask a question you don't want the answer to.
Yeah.
Do you think that your path to the Marines would have been changed had you not gone to foster care? Because you talk about that detachment, right? And this is what I mentioned before. Part of the military, and we hear this a lot on the podcast, part of the reason people join is for a sense of belonging. They want to belong to something, right? There are kids out there who are young and don't have a future and don't have a direction, everything else. But if it's anything the military gives you, Army, Marines, Air Force, Navy, whatever it is, it gives you all those things. It gives you a purpose of direction. It gives you a sense of belonging. It gives you a second family, so to speak. It gives you substance in your life that you're actually accomplishing something. So with all that stuff you talk about detachment and missing, do you ever wonder if I had stayed with the family and if I had stayed home, that I wouldn't have joined the Marines, because maybe you would have had some of that?
I think I still would have joined the military, to be perfectly honest. And the reason why I say that is all the things that you actually just hit on. I wanted to get out of Stockton, and at the same time, I wanted something to give me a purpose outside of just high school. Not saying that I was the dumbest kid in high school, but I wasn't the brightest to have scholarships and what have you, to kind of give me the funds needed to go to college. And so I didn't join the military for college, but more so I wanted to understand myself on a different platform rather than, hey, everyone's going to college. That's pretty much where they're going to figure themselves out. There's kind of that time frame. And I wanted to go on the military end to understand myself, but also understand what I'm seeing on the news. What I saw on the news, 9/11 growing up and what have you, everyone has their opinion about the war and whatnot, but it's perspective on one end, and no one knows their end, and I wanted to understand what happens downrange, what happens in war, what are they going through, rather than we're assuming they're coming back screwed up or, violent, or, like what's truly happening on their side. And so joining was a lot of different variables. It wasn't, I'm joining to, fight for my country. I'm joining for, scholarship or schooling or whatever, or I'm joining for X, Y, and Z. It's multiple thought process that led up to me actually joining the Marine Corps.
Did you know anything about the military, the Marines, prior to getting in? Did you research it, or you just kind of said, look, this is what I want to do and I'm going for it?
No. Like I said, initially it was almost the Army, because the Army had a commercial that, you see, they have ROTC.
Yep.
Marine Corps, they're fairly cheap on the commercial end growing up. And I don't remember really seeing a commercial, of maybe one commercial about the Marine Corps. But I had a friend that was interested in joining the Army as well. He was researching a lot more because he was graduating a year before me, and came across the Army, but then it was right next door to the Marine recruiting office, and came back, told me about it. And he was like, dude, you got to check this out. It's awesome. I go check it out, and it was exactly where I felt like I wanted to be. Just how the Marines carried themselves, how they approached me, along with the physical demands required from me. I felt this was a place for me where I wanted to test myself as a Marine. And I felt the Army, the Navy, those were an easier options for me to excel in. And I wasn't looking for something easy. And I think the Marine Corps at front approach just was just like, this is what I want to be. I want to be a Marine.
Did you tell your mom about your decision, or you just did it without her?
Oh, I don't think anyone knew initially, until like it was required to sign papers. And so initially I told my foster mom, which I don't think was that difficult. Mm-hmm. I forgot when I told my mom, but I know she wasn't too pleased at first when I told her, because I don't even know if she asked me what I was going in for, like what job wise. But I was initially going for infantry, and that was the only thing I even wanted to focus on going into, was infantry. I didn't even look at the other areas. So, yeah, I think I told my foster mom. I'm pretty sure my foster mom told my mom, but I think my mom called me, and I had to explain that I'm joining the military, and she didn't like that at first. And my mom to me is everything. So disrespecting her, upsetting her, like those are things I don't want to do. But it was a hard decision when you have to tell your mom you joined the military. She didn't initially, from what I recall, she didn't really approve of that. And it was a very difficult decision because I knew I was going to go through it regardless. Right. I don't think I was going to back out of joining the Marines, but it was going to make it easier when, if she was like, okay, you know what, I support you, whatever. And I think that took a couple weeks before we got around to, you know what, you're going to do what you're going to do. You're your own person. You're grown, grown a man. And I support you. And she gave me her blessings not too long right before I went to boot camp, and it made the process that much easier to leave.
All right. So when is this time frame wise that you enlist?
2007.
Okay.
Right after I graduated from high school.
Okay. So June, July time frame. And
I left July of 2007.
Okay. And you head off to basic. Was that all you thought it was going to be?
I jump on the bus, and the first thing in my mind, actually, I had a friend with me because, who doesn't join the Marine Corps without trying to recruit all their friends with them? So I actually had a friend that joined with me, and so he was actually in boot camp with me the entire time. But I jump on that bus, and the first thing that goes to my mind is, what did I just get myself into? Like, holy shit! Because you jump on the bus, you go through the whole maps and whatnot, and you get there at night, and all of a sudden, some dude comes on there and he starts screaming. You're just like, oh fuck! There's no other way out of this, huh?
Yeah.
Gotta. This is what I signed up for, huh? All right, cool. So I follow the rules, orders, what have you, and that was another thing that people questioned. I wasn't the best person at taking orders from people. Something with me and the law, or me and superiors, don't really see eye to eye. So a lot of people ask me, how did I make it through the military in general? And I still have no idea. I always just kind of got in enough trouble to skirt the line. But in boot camp, I actually wanted to excel and be God, but never made. I think I got God, screwed that up. So I kind of just fit in with the general population and did my job. So after boot camp, graduating, went to SOI, School of Infantry.
Mm-hmm.
Felt like immediately after, where I went in as an infantry XX or 03 XX, and that just to me just means infantry unknown. You're going to be infantry, basic rifleman, machine gunner, mortarman, whatever. And this is pretty much where you can choose if you're not told. Oddly enough, in School of Infantry. And initially I was going to choose to be a machine gunner. They give you a certain date and you wake up with whatever job you decided to go with, from what I recall. So at, 0700, you wake up with the machine gunners if you want to be a machine gunner. You wake up, 05, you want to be 0311, something like that, somewhere along those lines. Initially I wanted to be a machine gunner until I went to the armory and kicked over the Mark 19. Or the 50. I don't remember what it is. It was had a big main body. I cannot recall. It was one of those two systems, and
the two ones that are the most fun to fire.
It's on the final day, and I'm like, yeah, the hell I am.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Yeah,
yeah. And I was a strong kid. I could have carried it, but it was a 15-mile hump. I was like along with packs and all that. I'm like, I'm good. I will carry the saw that's like 10 pounds,
mm-hmm.
12, whatever, and I'll carry all the extra ammo. But nah, I'm not carrying that big main body. So I bowed out of being a machine gunner and became an infantryman, and excelled pretty well at that. And went so after School of Infantry, and this is all in 07. And December of 2007, I was stationed at 3rd Battalion Submarines in 29 Palms.
Okay.
My first duty station.
By this time, you feel like you settled into the Marine Corps, though? That fear of what did I just get myself into is gone by this point, obviously.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, every new situation had a fear, a moment of fear there with it, because it's a new experience. I don't know exactly what I'm walking into. So even when I got to my unit, you hear the horror stories of, being hazed, and it's a shitty life the first year you're in the fleet. So I was expected of getting there and just pretty much being boot camp all over again, of being yelled at, told where to go, do this, do that. Just now I can go into my own barracks at the end of the night, or chill, or have the weekends. And they were just getting back from their deployment. So I got lucky of being there and not having any seniors to really look over us. So had a good, 2 weeks of freedom
mm-hmm.
before they came back from their libo. And yeah, once they got back, it was kind of a shit show on that end.
So you're at 29 Palms, and within a year, you deployed to Iraq, correct?
Yeah.
All right. So what was that mission? Where were you headed? What did you know?
So in 2008, we're doing the work up there, and I'm with India Company at this time. Oh, side note, I was also stationed with my friend who actually told me about the Marine Corps initially, if you remember that part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
I actually was stationed with him. I got lucky. We were
At
stationed
29 Palms.
Yeah, in 29 Palms.
Wow.
Same battalion, same company, just different unit or different team. So it was cool to kind of come across him and see him, hang out with him. But we were doing a workup for Haditha in 2008 to 2009, where we had a large area to operate and kind of hold, as far as I can recall right now. And that was a pretty chill deployment, to be honest, in comparison to Afghanistan. A few pop shots here and there, but most of it was a lot of foot mobile patrol, shaking hands, kissing babies, speaking with the local populace. That was primarily our missions on a day-to-day basis.
I know you said most of it was, meeting with the populace, but how much of contact with the enemy did you see?
On my end, none.
Really?
None.
Were you one of those guys who was kind of chomping at the bit, like you wanted something to happen, so to speak?
Yeah. You're waiting for something to happen, but at the time we get there, we know that we're pulling out of Iraq. Everything's popping off in Afghanistan. I think, 1-7 was there. So even while we were there, we're hearing about things happening in Afghanistan, because at some point we almost had to relieve our radio equipment to send to Afghanistan. So we knew where all the fun was happening, and it just wasn't where we were at the time. So it was just kind of, let's try and win over the hearts and minds of the local populace to make sure they understand we're on their side. But they didn't want us there to begin with. So it's eventually going to go back the way that it was. So it was to say the least, a very simple deployment in Iraq. So once we got back from that deployment, I actually put in I wanted to be a part of Scout Snipers for the Afghanistan deployment. So we do a workup. Well, once we figure out that we're going to Afghanistan, initially 3-7 was told we're going to go on a MEU, Marine Expeditionary Unit, afloat, which would be like the first and forever for this unit, just because it's such a combat deployed unit, very heavily combat deployable unit. So we're just starting to work up, but then come to find out we're actually going to Afghanistan. Probably a few months after we find out we're initially doing a MEU.
Were you excited about that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But I think everyone was excited about that, because being a combat, like being infantry, the last thing you want to do is go on a MEU. Just because it has nothing to do with your training, nothing you signed up to be doing. It's just, it sounds boring. But I was excited to kind of I get to travel, see other places, which is another factor of why I joined the Marine Corps.
Right.
So I was looking on that end of it, decided it was being boring. I was like, you know what? I'm out of harm's way. I'm sure my mom would be okay with this. I can see other locations, see other ports, which to me, that was traveling better than what I would experience any other way. But once we were told they were going to Afghanistan, then it was like, we're constantly training day in, day out, because we lost a few months working out for something else. So we're constantly training, and 29 Palms is like the best training environment. We're like, this is our backyard. So we were never short on training days unless it was just too hot, like too hot, like Black Flag, over 115, 20 degrees hot. The only time we weren't training, if it was like 110, we're light PT.
Right.
We're still training. And so once I got back, I put in go through the whole Scout Sniper process, go through the whole NDOC, pass all that. And I'm excited to be working with a smaller team now. Great guys. go back and retake my ASVAB because I wanted to go to the schoolhouse and pass that with the higher points just to go to schoolhouse. Like I only took that test, which is initially what you take to get into the Marine Corps. I retook that same test just so I can go to the schoolhouse because that's how much I really want to be a scout sniper, and get there to come to find out that the battalion submitted my paperwork late or something was wrong, but my slot had to be taken at that time because things weren't up to par. And I was heavily pissed off and disappointed at the same time. And it became kind of like whatever. I was like, okay, I'm just going to go back to, stay scout sniper platoon and just be a pig, which is just a shortened version of not being a scout sniper.
Right.
And I was okay with that. But they ended up building a team. This is all part of the workup for Afghanistan. I'm just giving you a little in between.
Sure. No, go ahead.
So they ended up doing a kind of a pool from every company to create a section for PSD. I think it was like personal security detachment for the BC or what have you. And we're just their own personal security detail. That's all that was. And I didn't really agree with that. Who they had in charge, I didn't really vibe with. Felt that I should be in a more leadership position. Just because what we were doing were infantry tactics. The people that had in charge of us were fairly new to the unit. I felt that who we had there were more than enough to lead. And so we just didn't see eye to eye. They kicked me out. Short
Really?
end of it. As you can tell, this is like when I said that I don't do well with, authority figures in some instances. This is one of them. And so they kicked me out, and I go to Lima Company right before deployment. And I don't know Lima Company. I don't know anyone from Lima. Which I was kind of shocked because I was like, why wouldn't they send me back to another company that I'm used to? But, whatever. So I'm in Lima Company now, getting ready to I probably feel like this is a month before we leave because we've already done everything else. We've done our heavy training. We've done our big main training with the company, battalion. Like we've done all those trainings. So yeah, it had to be a month before we leave for Afghanistan. And I'm with a whole nother company I don't know. And now I'm with Lima Company. We fly over to Afghanistan. And there's that.
Right. Okay. So when do you get to Afghanistan?
We get to Afghanistan, what was it, like March of 2010?
Okay. And typically your deployments as Marines are only about what, 8 or 9 months?
No, actually, I think sometimes shorter than that.
Okay.
I think 6 to 8 months, but I might be wrong. I think it just depends.
Well, I'll get to the reason why I'm asking in a moment, because you get there in March. So what's your mission when you get there, and what's the environment like as soon as you hit ground?
We land, we go to an air base. So it's pretty chill. We're waiting to be pitched out to our area of operation, which for whatever reason, again, we have a very large area of operation where, companies are scattered at different locations. I don't remember what our initial mission was. We just expected to have heavy contact, like once we're out of the wire, once we're on our own, doing our own thing. And it was a lot more mobile rather than Iraq was a lot more foot mobile. Where We're patrolling a lot. This is a little bit more up armored vehicles, get out, still doing foot mobile patrols, but we're being transported now. We have our own vehicles to transport ourselves. And we do a few missions that not a lot happened. There was a mission where we received pop shots, and I think the initial contact was we were mortared. I think that's how that started. We were mortared. I think we were scouting or overlooking an area. We were hit by a mortar, and no one was injured. And we pursued the area, but nothing came of it. as far as I remember. I think we eliminated the enemy, if I can recall, but nothing more than that. I think that's how that ended it. That was like our first, at least that was what I can remember, my first full engagement, like bumping and bounding, running, machine guns firing overhead, assaulting the enemy, assaulting a location, before hitting Sangin. And so before we get to Sangin, where the Brits are, everything was, patrols. It was pop shots here and there, but nothing crazy, nothing epic, nothing,
right.
That I would say like, this is awesome. So we get to Sangin, and now at this point, I'm a team leader. So I have my Junior Marines, and pretty much I have like the best team ever, because as I was going through all my time enlisted, I remember I said I wanted to be a machine gunner.
Mm-hmm.
I was still carrying the saw for a temporary time, but then I had one guy who had a precision rifle for long range, and then I had another machine gunner, and then I think I had a 203, and then when we patrolled, we also had machine gunners with us. So it was an epic squad
right.
that I got to be in charge of, that I loved, because I was like, I enjoy this. So we hit Sangin, and we're talking with the Brits. We're getting to know the Brits. We're trying to figure out where their line that they haven't crossed, that they're talking about, which is not that far outside that wire. And we're going there to relieve the Brits, because pretty much the Brits they're doing their job, but they're just not pushing hard enough. And we get there, and we're preparing for pretty much battle at this point. Like, this is where we walk into Afghanistan thinking this is what it's going to be. But when we hit Sangin, this is exactly what we expected it to be. We walk out of the wire, heavy contact. It's a firefight. It's a shit show. It's everything. This does not happen until about this point. So we're understanding the Brits, and sure enough, we get all of our battalion to this location, and we push out, and exactly what we wanted. It's a firefight. They haven't pushed past a certain line. We push past that, and it's hell breaks loose. Because I remember that day so well. Our team wasn't completely there for whatever reason. I don't know where they were, but we were undermanned for our team, so we were actually considered the Kazakh litter team. And as we're pushing out with the rest of the guys, people were, our guys get shot. No KIA at this point, just gunshot wounds. We shoved in the litter, and we're, running guys back into base. We got air support. We got mortars, lining up. It's a complete full battalion push at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Every system is being operated. And this is like an area we've 10 minutes outside of the wire of this compound. It was nuts. And this lasted, like I said, I felt like probably a good hour, but I'm pretty sure it lasted longer than that. Because I feel like every day was like the same exact thing. We're pushing, and we're pushing further and further. And now that our team gets there, now we're pushed out, bounding, clearing buildings, pushing through. And then we became the furthest company out in Sangin. So we're in no man's land. Like, no one knows what's past this area. We take over a compound. An IED is triggered. Our guy is almost blown off a wall. Thank God he wasn't on the ground. He was actually scouting a wall. Grenades are being tossed over by kids into our compound. It was a hell of a place to be.
Right. So, had anybody sustained any casualties at this point?
Yeah, we had a few casualties, but no deaths, just gunshot wounds.
Did
As far
any
as
of
I
that
know.
sort of unnerve you at all?
Did it unnerve me? I'm pretty sure I was nervous. I'm pretty sure I was scared for my guys. Like, when am I going to go? And I think for me, as long as I didn't go via sniper IED, I think I was going to be fine because those are the two things you can't see. So as long as I had a fighting chance, I was going to fight. So in my mind, I don't think I cared much as long as my guys were good and I don't get taken out by something I can't actually retaliate towards.
Sure.
So once we hit our compound, our company pushes out a little bit further than bounce back. And this is about the time where I'm injured.
Well, I was going to say, that's where I was getting to because it happens in September. How close is that to the end of your deployment?
1 month. We were already doing left seat, right seat.
That's why I asked that earlier about getting there in March and how long your deployments were, because all of us kind of know who have been deployed, that calendar starts getting real big. It starts to tick real fast when you get in that last 30 days.
Yeah.
You're so close to getting the heck out of there.
Yep. And so, yeah, we're already, who was relieving us? I think it was 3-5. They're already coming in. They're already there. I don't even know what I said there. They're physically there. Their advon was already there, so their advanced party.
Right.
And I think they're just trying to figure out the area. And so we're starting to push backwards because we're trying to get back, regroup, and I think overall maybe do one last thing, and then we were done. So we had countdown clock 30 days probably at best.
Sure. So tell me about that morning in September when you get injured. What happens? How does that day begin?
Yeah, so we get word, I think the night before or in the morning of, that we have intel that the Taliban or opposing forces are trying to ambush our location. Because we are the furthest small team out right now, I wouldn't even say we're sitting ducks, but our support is like 5 minutes further behind us. So it would take some time for them to get to us, or 10 minutes behind us or whatever. And so we decided to set up a satellite patrol, and we're going to set up a satellite patrol to push out, hunker down for early morning, be very quiet, and then if we were ambushed, we're going to ambush this ambush. So we do that. I wake up. I have a 5 energy drink in my pocket. For some reason, I don't drink it because it doesn't sound like the best day. Literally what I tell myself is, if I drink this, something's going to happen. I'm going to bleed out. Don't ask me why. That comes to mind. It comes to mind. And I confirmed that same story with actually another friend of mine who was with me. And he validates. He's like, yeah, something was in your pocket, and I remember it was a 5-hour energy drink that I chose not to drink for that specific reason. So we go on the morning patrol, and I'm seeing like 550 code on the doors, and I'm like, why is that there? And I'm like, oh yeah, we had our other team was in front of us. They were marking doors probably as they cleared them out. But then the first thought was, why was 550 code on the door? And 550 code is nothing more than just, shoestring for anyone that's a shortened version of it that can hold up to 550 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
I thought nothing of it, but something like a sense kind of kicked in, and I was like, this just doesn't feel right. Something's off. So we moved past this door, and our team kicks down a door, go inside. I don't know why they chose this building, but I guess it's irrelevant at this point. Kicks down a door, goes inside. At this point, we're with 12 Marines, 3 Afghan National Army, give or take. And I'm with my junior Marine outside as a team leader. So I set him down. He has a saw, and we're providing outer security. So we're looking outwards while everyone else goes inside, takes care of business. It's either going to be, hey, we're taking over this building, or we're leaving. But for whatever reason, it felt like they were in that building for quite some time. And me not getting any information, we're trying to be quiet, so we're keeping the radio chatter very, very to a minimum. Reposition my junior Marine. I'm like, hey, I'll be right back. Shouldn't take no more than 5-10 seconds at best. to walk back in and be like, what are we doing? What's our next move? So I can, look ahead. But I actually never made it into that building. So as I said, there's 12 Marines plus A&A, leaving 2 out. So 11 or so Marines, or 10 Marines, go inside, and they kick down this door. This door takes up part of this hallway, to give you guys a visual. So the pathway is very limited. So you can't really screw up the walking pattern. It's just kind of laid out for you because the door is already taking up the large section of the hallway. So I followed that pathway, and the IED either was buried too deep, or for whatever reason I just kicked it just right, and that triggers the IED. 3 steps into this building, so everyone either steps over it, it's buried too deep, doesn't trigger, whatever. But that thing was meant for me. But it goes off, and at first I thought I wasn't exactly sure what just happened when this IED goes off. And the first thing that happens is that dirt falls in my ear. So that's the first thing that happens after like hitting the ground, ears ringing, dirt falls in my ear, and I'm probably the most pissed at this moment in time about that. There's a lot more things to be pissed off about, but I'm really pissed off that dirt just fell in my ear right now. But I think that kept me conscious. So I get my breath. I'm like, what just happened? My ears are ringing. I'm laying down. I'm like, okay, IED, obviously. So I try to sit up because I can't catch my breath. I'm like struggling to try to breathe now. The wind was just not completely out of me. So I push myself with my feet, trying to sit up against the side of the wall. But my feet aren't really doing what I'm telling them to do. So as I'm laying there, I'm like, okay, possibly a double amputee, because my feet aren't doing what I'm telling them to do. I'm like, all right, you know what? Calm the heart, relax.
Is anybody around you at this point, or you're doing this all by yourself?
I'm doing this part. This is all happening in my mind,
okay,
as I'm laying there. But my guys are still right around me. They're not too far, but they have to wait for the dirt to settle. They can't see. So initially, when this IED goes off, no one calls out Storey's hit. No one knows that I'm even injured just yet, because they can't see. Mm-hmm. And then once the dirt settled, which probably took about maybe 10, 15 seconds for them to fully see, and I think it was my junior Marine, because obviously he was the only other person outside. I think he calls out that I'm hit. He's like, Storey's hit. And then I think the inside team also calls it, and the nearest person's like, Storey's hit. So nylon's being rung up. And like I said, as I'm laying there, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, I give myself the sign of the cross. I'm alive. I can still keep fighting, but I got to calm myself down. I was like, my doc is going to get to me. We have a stellar doc. We have a former, Navy corpsman who knows this shit very, very well. So I'm not even concerned in the lightest of, will they get to me and take care of me? I know they will. Mm-hmm. But first I was like, let me calm myself down, because if I freak out, they're going to freak out. So I remain calm. I assess myself, try to calm my heart rate, try to calm my breathing. And once the corpsman gets to me, I'm like, hey, this is what I'm feeling. This is what's going on, blah, blah. He asked me, the basics, name, rank, whatever. Just so he knows, like, hey, he's conscious. I give him more information so he knows, like, hey, I'm well aware that what's going on. So that way he can do his job and not have to worry about anything else, because if it becomes a hectic situation, then, he's going to panic, because I believe I was the first casualty he worked on. I could be wrong, but I believe he was with us the whole entire time. I'm the first casualty he worked on. So I remain calm. I think, like I said, I think that if I remain calm, my team will remain calm, and that's exactly what happened. I remained calm and kept everyone else calm. Did my best to still, talk to the team while they're, put me on the litter, moving me, and get me to higher echelon of care. And I think remaining calm helped the rest of the team remain calm that way. it was done efficiently at that time.
Okay, so now that I mean, at any point in time, do you feel like I'm going to die, or that doesn't enter your head?
No, actually, because I gave myself this, like I said, it's the sign of the cross, and the first thing I told myself was like, I'm not gonna die. I'm not gonna die here. If I die anywhere else, that's okay, but I'm not going to die here. Not while I'm still breathing. And once they, transport me to the higher echelon care, I'm telling Doc, I'm like, I think I'm going to shock. He's like, you're not going to shock. I was like, okay. They're transporting me to higher echelon care. They're doing all, making sure I'm stable all the way through. But once I get on that bird, in this entire process, my pain is intensifying. So that burning sensation in my leg is just getting hotter and hotter and hotter. It literally feels like I'm standing on top of a fire. And to give you a visual even of what my leg looked like, I like to describe it as if you took a chicken bone, wrapped it in camis, and broke the chicken bone, and you have fragmented, tibia, fibia, poking through the skin. That's what I remember seeing. So this pain is intensifying, but no, I don't think of I even surrendering to death until I'm actually on the bird being transported outside of our area now. Once I'm on the bird, I'm holding this nurse's hand, flight nurse, and I'm squeezing it like death grip because I'm in so much pain that I didn't want to tolerate it anymore. And that's what that kind of came down to. Is like, you know what, I'm tired. At this point, I'm on a bird. I think we've done all we need to do. I'm gonna take a nap now.
But you at this point have succumbed to the fact that you think you're losing both your legs, correct?
Yeah, I still think I'm losing both my legs.
Okay.
So I black out on the flight, and if I woke up at that point, I don't think I cared. I was like, I stayed awake. I think we've done as much as we could do at this point. I'm good. I'm going to take a nap. I'm tired. I'm tired of trying to stay awake and enduring that amount of pain. But I wake up, my leg is completely amputated. I have no idea. Someone asked me recently too, how long were you out for? And I never thought about that. But when I woke up, my leg, the remaining of my leg was completely removed. It was actually just mostly hanging on by flesh. And my left leg was wrapped in another type of system. So my left leg was not amputated, but it was damaged. There actually is a scar in the back of my leg. I remember waking up asking the doctor how that happened. He's like, I don't know, you were blown up. How the hell how am I supposed to know?
The short answer is you were blown up. That's the answer.
Yeah. So my left leg is still good, but it's not. It has its own amount of damage to it. But my right leg was completely amputated when I wake up at the hospital. And I wake up in the hospital in Afghanistan. I think it was Bastion. I think that's the name of the hospital, Bastion Hospital. Anyways, I wake up with one of my former lieutenants, and I'm so high off morphine and all the other drugs that I remember just waking up like, "What's up, my nigga?" And it's funny to say that because as everyone knows me, like I'm a decently well-spoken kind of guy, but they've never seen me say even anything slighted to those words. It's not part of my, character. So it was a good laugh out of waking up and, seeing my lieutenant, my leg, and everyone who was there. It was a good, laugh for everyone. And kind of find out, he's in there for concussion. I'm stable. I'm good. I'm talking. I get to call my mom, and I don't think she answers. So I call my other friend that did remember the number too, and apparently there was a telephone game that was played to where by the time I even got back to the States, I was double amputee, mangled, dead. Who knows what that game they were playing to where eventually one of my friends was just like, look, we got to go to the damn source. They eventually go to my mom and find out that he's just missing a leg. He's alive and well. He's just missing a leg. And then I get transported into Bethesda Hospital in Maryland from Afghanistan to Germany to Maryland.
So you seem to remember a lot of this. Is there any point that you don't remember anything?
No. Everything I remember, I'm remembering to the best of my ability.
But there wasn't a span where you just like, I was out. I mean, obviously on the flight back, you were out, right?
Yeah, I was out on the flight back, but no, for the most part, I remember fragments of where I was. You'd wake up in and out of my injury. Actually, even when I was in Germany, I had a friend that was in the army. He actually happened to be there and visit me when I was in the hospital for that, however long I was there for. I have, like, time wise, I don't know where I was in those locations. Like Bastion, I don't know how long I was there for that time wise. I just know I was there. And from what I remember, Launch still Germany. I don't know how long I was there for. I felt like I was there for 8 hours, but I could have been there for a week for all I know.
Gotcha.
And then Bethesda, Maryland is where I had my longest stay. And that's where my mom got to fly out there and be in the hospital with me.
When you first wake up and you look down and you see that one leg is amputated, what's your first thoughts?
My guys are still out there.
That's fair.
Yeah, I don't think there was a conscious thought of, holy shit, I'm an amputee. Until months later. I think the initial thought was, my guys are still out there fighting. Like, hopefully, like all I'm thinking of, like, what could I do? And I'm like, conclusion wise, like, both my legs are in, apparatus. They can't do anything. I couldn't do anything if I wanted to. Couldn't crawl if I tried. So you kind of just surrender that idea to, I hope my guys, get back safe. They're okay, and they're, there's no more contact from this point forward. Just to ease my mind, there's no more fighting. But as I'm in Bethesda Hospital, we have guys from my unit coming in, IED, shrapnel to the face. Who was the other guy that came in? There was another guy that came in too while I'm there, and, they, fill me in on what's happened, what felt like only a month left of deployment, but 2 weeks, like a week or so after I was injured. Actually, one guy who was injured actually ended up being in the same hospital with me too, and he was part of my actual team. And so he got to fill me in on what happened after the math of me being injured. But apparently our unit had one more last I don't want to say last stand, because that just sounds way too dramatic to use. One last fight, and they were clearing a path for whatever reason. And apparently it ended up being an ambush to where they had to call in air support and had a danger close mission, which is they're dropping in, air, they're dropping bombs like within close proximity of friendly units. So it's not something you ever call unless it's like your lastest effort. Like, shit apparently hit the fan pretty bad. But I think the story from that one was that started off by walking to a building, ANA stepped on an ID, casualties immediately on their end. And then it was just an ambush and a firefight, and then a danger close mission from what they told me. So right. That might be kind of skewed, but that's what I remember them telling me. But to go back to answer your question, no, I don't think until months later, I didn't even think about me missing my leg. It was more of, my guys are still out there fighting, and then seeing them come in, it was just like, well, I couldn't do anything anyways.
Right. To that end, when you talk about the realization of it, you know, a lot of people in your situation go through a whole myriad of emotions. They cycle through them all. But, you know, depression and grief and all that other stuff certainly are the paramount ones. How did you deal with all that?
Those didn't hit me until the back end. So once from Bethesda, we change scenes to Balboa Hospital here in San Diego, where I still now reside in San Diego. Once I'm considered outpatient, I have my wheelchair. I go to the Wounded Warrior Battalion. I'm now part of their detachment, and my job now is just go to appointments. And once I started going to my appointments on my own, once I realized like how different my life is, how annoying this wheelchair crutches is, that's when those emotions started to hit me, is when I'm in my room, getting up and trying to do things differently. I wasn't able to just get up and walk, or it was a lot of pain. So as I'm dealing with this, being in a lot of pain, this whole realization, like I'm an actual amputee now, like where does my life go from here? Because I felt I was just going to get pushed out of the Marine Corps either way, being an amputee. I didn't really know. I questioned God every waking moment. I would wake up and question God, damn God, shit, shake hands with the devil, find anything to find something that makes sense of my existence. Because at a certain point, I was just like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be alive. Like dying felt way much easier than just living through this bombardment of emotions that you're constantly ringing through your head, that trying to make sense of what's next, what goes on from here. And this typically just happens in my room. Like when I leave my room, I like to describe it as putting on a mask. And I'd put on a mask in front of my physical therapist, my friends, the battalion, what have you, because we're all going through our own problems. And the last thing I felt like, no one needs to know what I'm going through. Like I don't even know what I'm going through. So, but every waking moment, I was just questioning God, just trying to find a purpose for my existence. Until, I'm abusing my pain meds, while somehow still trying to keep myself busy. I even started to register for classes that was offered just to stay busy while going to my appointments and going to classes at night. And so, and all of this, the short answer comes down to, I wake up one day and I was just like, I was like, what makes me happy? Kind of like, just what am I here for, my existence? Because suicide is like ringing through my mind like daily at this point. So I was like, I need something. I need some type of answer, something. So I was like, what makes me happy? And I felt that was a good starting point. And I kind of kept waking up every day, asking myself the same question, what makes me happy? And it kind of comes to short answer to, I enjoyed making people happy. Like that's what made me happy. Helping others, working with others, making them happy, laugh. That's what made me happy. I don't think I have much self-care into myself more than what can I do for others. And then eventually with that answer, probably shortly just kicked my meds cold turkey. And I was like, I need to get out of this situation because I'm not going to be, addicted to medication, because more so I was born on drugs. So the last thing I want to be is how I was created or born. So I kick all my meds.
When you say you were born on drugs, that's because your biological mother was an addict at the time she had you, correct? I just want to clarify for the audience.
I wouldn't say she was an addict, but she dabbled. We'll say dabbled in drugs and alcohol.
Sure. Okay.
When I was being conceived, because I don't know the full answer.
Right.
I just know what I know. But so to me, it was just one of those things where it's like, that's not gonna be me. I'm not gonna turn out like that. So I kicked my meds cold turkey and pursue sports. Sports, because at that time I was like, I just want to get out of my room. I want to be active. I want to do things. So pursuing the Paralympic sports or Paralympic camps that were offered allowed me to travel, which is what I wanted to do. So it helped me go to different states, see different areas. And as well, it put me around people who had the same mindset of getting back, being active, and being better, even though we're all missing an appendage and we're all going through our own sorts of shit in our own mind. You know, that was to me a good camaraderie that I wanted to be around of. So with these Paralympic camps, that kind of just started to be where I was like, okay, I'm happy doing these. And one of the head Paralympic committee personnel, after running a track meet one day in North Carolina, I don't know, comes up to me and she was like, hey, do you have a running leg? And I was like, no, because at this time I was only walking on my everyday walking leg. So I wasn't really in a springy running blade for running. I was just like, I'm just happy to be here. So she tells me that she's like, you have a lot of potential. I'm like, okay. And go back. I tell my physical therapist about this. Come to find out, our agility coach, who you have to go through in order to get approved for the running leg, is actually a 2-time gold medalist Olympic track athlete. So I was like, all right, well, this is pretty cool. So I tell him about it, and I start pursuing the Paralympics as a track athlete in the 100, 200, and 400 meters. And he was my coach to start off with. And kind of sports became my savior at that point, because I didn't really care too much about going to physical therapy. A lot of the time I went to PT mainly because of Tommy, which was a therapy dog there.
Right.
That was most of my time spent in physical therapy and like mental therapy and what have you. But sports became that place for me where I would go and I was truly happy competing, training, working. And in this whole process, it was more of, I wanted a challenge. Like what challenges can I, break through? What barriers can I knock down? Like, you set them in front of me, like, let's go. And so from that point, I kind of just kept doing sports and, climbed 2 of the 7 summits, my first being in Antarctica back in 2013, and then Kilimanjaro, along with other little mountains in between, and pursuing the Paralympics full time as a track athlete and running, I think I did a marathon, my first Marine Corps marathon, probably the only marathon I wanted to run, worthwhile running, in my opinion, even now. Just challenging myself, just pushing my body to those limits. And Antarctica had to be like that big turning point for my athletic, I wouldn't say athletic career, but as an athlete and as for an overall turning point in my situation, that was the biggest turning point, was in Antarctica on that mountain. And that ended up being because we trained pretty hard. I made nationals to go in Indianapolis, and then I start pursuing mountaineering with the Heroes Project, which their mountain was in Antarctica for 2013 January.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Mount Vinson. And one of the guys in the hospital, bilateral, reached out to me. He's like, hey, you want to do this? And I'm like, sure, why not? So anyways, long story short, we're in Antarctica. I'm hiking, 25, 50 pounds on a sled, 25 pounds or so on my back. We're pulling this up the mountain. Like, I'm trained, ready to go. But I'm in San Diego. There's no snow. There's no altitude. There's just things you can't prepare for. But I was ready to go. I brought my Marine Corps flag with me that I wanted to get to the summit. And I'm thinking I'm shit hot, to be dead honest. I think I'm ready to go tackle this mountain. Easy peasy, not that hard. It became the hardest thing I probably did as an amputee at that point. Very quickly, just because walking through the snow and the glacier, it was just a different sensation, different feeling. So we're going up. We make it to Camp 1. We're moving up to High Camp, which requires this technical climb to get, you're pulling yourself up, rappelling upward, if ever, it's all right. Anyways, ice axe. It's probably the best part of the climb, in my opinion. There's a photo of it actually where I'm on it. What you can see my other prosthetic on the side of my backpack. But it was right before we pushed the summit. I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm tired. Like, I'm just not used to this. I'm physically, emotionally just tired. And I'm laughing to myself along the way, just trying to keep myself busy, entertained. And for some reason, like, it kind of clicks in my mind. I'm like, you know what? I can turn around right now. And I've accomplished more than I thought I would ever do as an amputee, by far. But to me, that wasn't good enough. So I started to question. I'm like, why am I here? Like, what am I doing on this mountain? Like, I'm suffering for a reason. What am I suffering for? And, you start with, these questions, and they just don't seem to fit. They don't satisfy me. And it comes to a question I can't remember exactly. But what satisfies my answer and pursuing that was, I'm not doing this for me. It started off as for me, but it's no longer for me. I want to empower, I want to show other amputees back in the hospital that they can do the same thing that I'm doing right now. And we're not going to let our injury define us. We're going to, define our injury. But I had to also think, like, it took me being here to get to this point. But it doesn't mean that I can't share this with other guys, and hopefully they can, do the same thing I did, kick their meds and find their own passion.
Right. So what would you say to somebody who's a vet now who's struggling?
Reach out. Reach out to anyone that you trust. And I emphasize trust. Because if you're struggling, like, you're going to want to talk to someone that you trust, that isn't going to question, judge, or, try and fix your problems, like, right there on the spot. You just reach out to someone that's going to actually listen and be like, all right, dude, I'm understanding where you're going. Or, hey, man, I'm sorry. I didn't go through that same situation. I don't know exactly what you're going through, but I'm here to listen. Let's go grab a beer. Let's go, let's go up a mountain. Let's go to the gym. Let's go for a swim. Let's go, sit in a hot tub. Let's go do something together, get them out of that space. Because I feel like a lot of veterans, you want to hold on to your shit, because I feel like that's what we do. We want to hold on to shit. We want to be tough. We want to be hard asses. I don't need help. I'm not struggling. I'm just being weak. And that's not the case. It's not the case at all. Like, you holding on to your shit, not talking about it, it's going to be hard, because it's only happening in your mind. There's no place for this information. There's nowhere for this, tragedy to be vented out to. And if you're truly struggling, I would say talk to someone, reach out to someone that you trust, who will understand you, because you're not going through this by yourself. You're choosing to go through this by yourself. You truly are. This is a choice, decision to go through this by yourself. But it doesn't have to be. I'm, part of that, situation too. Like when I went through my own shit, like, I have refused to go to therapy. I refuse to talk to anyone about what I'm going through because I looked at it as, oh, they won't understand. They won't get it. But I come to find out and learn as time goes on. It doesn't matter if they understand. It doesn't matter if they truly, to the T, know exactly what you're talking about. They're willing to understand and they're willing to listen. And I think that's the biggest thing is that, hey, these people are willing to listen and understand. They don't have to fully understand what you're saying, but they are there to listen at the end of the day for you to get it off your chest, for you to get it out loud, for you to say whatever you're going to say. And once it's out there, it is relieving to kind of vocalize it out loud. But it is painful to sit and torment yourself silently with the same information. So, yeah, reach out to someone. Hell, like I tell everyone, reach out to me. I give people my personal number. Call me. I can care less. I will listen. I will sit here till the morning of. Like, I had one of my guys that actually, he's went through something. I sat up in the morning with him sipping whiskey. I was like, all right, he's way over there. I'm on the phone. We'll hang out together. We'll talk it out. But they have to want to open those doors. No one can force anyone to open those doors. No one, and forcing someone to try to open those doors is, you kind of push them backwards.
Right.
Because, they don't want to, go through those doors just yet. They don't know what's on the other side. They don't want to open those doors, probably out of fear. But when they're ready to open those doors, they'll open those doors. And when they're ready to let someone else in on what's behind those doors, then they're ready to let them in. And disclosure, anyone who lets you into that space, like, don't treat it lightly, because that means you're a big part of their, a big part of their life. They're telling you something that no one else knows. They're telling you something that is, kind of a secret to them. So it's not meant to be made fun of. And like, we like to make jokes and be a little bit more lighthearted, especially when we don't understand something. But, when you have someone who is truly opening up to you, don't dismiss that. Just accept it for whatever it is, because for the most part, I think when guys are trying to reach out for help or, trying to talk to people, trying not to be weak in their mind, they don't know how to say the right words because they don't know what to say. They're just trying something, and sometimes they get dismissed. Being lighthearted and joking around, trying to get the words out. And I think that kind of leads people to think that no one cares. No one wants to listen. No one gives a damn about what they're feeling. Life goes on without them, type of situations. And it's not true. There's a lot of people here to listen. There's a lot of people who actually care about what's going on.
Finally, Kionte, where are you with everything now? Where are you in your life with not only, recovery, but how you've learned to deal with the new normal that is your everyday existence? And, where are you as far as your service with the Marine Corps?
Where am I? I'm in a better place. I have my bouts of depression here and there. I have my days where it kind of goes up and down. And a lot of that kind of is a constant self-awareness. I might wake up some days. I don't have any nightmares anymore, thank God. But I might wake up some days where it might not be right. Some days are just kind of off, not really sure why. And I'll try to have, do a little backlog of like, well, did I sleep good? Okay, I slept good, ate good, had some water. Did I go to the gym? Oh shit, I didn't go to the gym. All right, I need to go to the gym. I need to get out, be active. For me, that's just what works. But then there's days where I can do that same checklist and nothing's working. Nothing's making sense, but I'm feeling depressed. These dark thoughts are coming back to my mind. I'm feeling worthless all of a sudden. Nothing makes sense. And being self-aware with these situations, like even going through these checklists, it's like, all right, well, I'm going to go inside, play some video games. I'm not going to bother anyone right now because I just need to ignore this for the day. Tomorrow's going to be a new day, and rinse and repeat. Sometimes those last few days, sometimes those last, few hours, and then the worst ones, they last weeks or they last a week for me. And the weak ones are the worst because trying to figure out what's going on, trying to figure out why you're waking up sad, why you don't feel great, why everything just feels dull, boring, just not fun. One is tiring, and two, when something doesn't make sense, it's even more frustrating because you've worked, at least for me, I've worked so hard to just manage this. And the way that I look at managing it is if it's something that's going to be with me, then I need to manage it. This is not something that I have to take medication for, in my opinion. Because if it's with me for the rest of my life, then understanding it is managing it, not medication is managing this thing that I'm choosing not to pay attention to. So, the weak ones are the worst ones because it's just you get tired, and that's where you kind of get bogged down with the most because your life doesn't stop. I still have my, chores, taking care of my pets, going to school. I still got things I have to do, but I don't want to do any of those things. I just want to sit at home and not do a damn thing most of the time. But doing all those things, it becomes kind of a burden, which is a simple task becomes a burden or just not interesting. And then once night falls, that's when it's just like you just kind of in your own mind. That's when it gets real, and that's when it really takes a bigger toll and a bigger test to like, all right, I just need to get to the next day. Just get to the next day. Go to the gym, work out. All right, not feeling it, sit in the hot tub. Keep doing the same thing. Just do something slightly different. Sometimes hang out with my friends, like, hey, let's go grab some food. Like we'll just choose a place, get some food, get out of the house. Even though I don't want to force myself to get out of the house, because these are the things that work for me. And I know what happens when I don't do these things. I actually go down this spiral, and it's twice as much work to get out of it, where I'm feeling way more worthless, way more non-caring. Thoughts are just like suicidal thoughts are just rampant. And that's where life is just, it's no longer fun for anyone around me.
Right.
But it required, trial and error to understand these things. But none of this was done by myself. It sounds like a lot of this was done by myself, but it's not. Like the community, like Challenge Athlete Foundation, Super 5 Fund, Range of Motion Project, Home for Our Troops, like they all supported my athletic career pursuit. And because of them, like I've been able to understand these things while managing these things, while understanding myself in this process. So none of this was just like done on my own. This is just a lot of self-awareness is on my own, but none of, like I wouldn't have understood any of these things without those organizations kind of, being there, supporting me, helping me, getting me out and doing different environments. But no, I'm in a much better place because I can understand, even actually, speaking of it, it just kind of just hit me the other day, actually, where I was home and just kind of just like, man, it's just one of those days. All right, take my dog for the walk. I don't really feel it. Pop an audiobook. Oh God, this is boring. Just situations like that kind of just hit me. But the one thing that was kind of evident was I wasn't in the gym. I just got back from Ecuador, climbing with the Range of Motion Project, summiting code epoxy with Kirstie Ennis, who's a great friend of mine.
Yep, she's a former guest on the podcast.
Shout out to her organization, Christina's Foundation. Amazing organization, amazing woman. Hard to keep up with her, even though she's missing a leg on 2 crutches. And it's hard to keep up with her. But I realized that even, I was in the gym. And that was one thing I was just like, all right, I'm not going to be in the gym. I got back sick. I was in the ER like a week ago, right when I returned back, for an infection or like a stomach bug or whatever, that's doing better now. But, I wasn't in the gym, and I knew, and that's all I thought of while I was here. I was like, I want to go to the gym. I want to go to the gym. I was like, no, take it easy, rest. And like I said, like those moments where it's like you feel worthless, dark, just not happy, starts to kind of slowly creep in. I'm like, nope, just not in the gym. I'm just out of my swing, give myself some time, and I don't overstress myself. So those still persist, and that's the purpose of even mentioning any of that. Was it still does persist day to day. Just right. I've learned different ways for myself to manage them. And like I said, if it's defined as a long-term thing or a lot, like it's going to be with you for the rest of your life. And if that's the case, you can manage it. You really can. There's, in my opinion, no way you can't manage it. You just have to find different ways and techniques that work for you.
Well, I think that's perfectly said. I think that you hit on all the right notes, and I certainly, if I can, congratulate you on everything that you've been able to overcome, because it is a lot, and we don't give enough credit and enough credence to the fact that, guys who have to, and gals who have to deal with all this, it's incredibly tough to overcome. And when you get to the top of that mountain and you start walking back down, it's a sense of relief, but it's not a destination. It's a journey, right? You're continually struggling every day and continuing to fight. And to that end, certainly thank you for not going down that dark road that so many other veterans unfortunately have gone down, that you're still here fighting the fight and getting a good message out there to everybody, because that's part of the reason why we do this, is to have your story hopefully inspire somebody else, and for somebody to realize, hey, I'm just like Kionte. I have the same things going on, and there is something I can do about it. So to that end, I certainly thank you for your message. It's been powerful and honest. Well,
thank you. I mean, that's what I hope to share. Like, if I do nothing else on this earth, I do nothing else for anyone else, is to share my experience from what I know and what I've experienced, and get it out there to the world the best of my ability, because we like to think that we're the only people in this world who goes through things by ourselves or alone, or we're the only person who's ever in this world experienced this situation by ourselves. No one else has ever experienced this. That's just not true. Mm-hmm. And for anyone who would think that's true, it's crazy, because it's not. And we all have different experiences, but we can all relate. We can all understand each other to some extent. It all depends on how we decide to vocalize that, and if we want to be understood. Because we can word things to where, you don't understand me. We can word it in a way where no one's going to understand us. But, it comes down to, do you want to be understood? Do you want others to understand you? And if you do, then you vocalize it that way. And if you don't, you become closed off, shut off, however you decide to stay away from people understanding you. But at the end of the day, we all can be understood one way or another. We just have to decide. It just comes to a point to, when are we going to open ourselves up to that?
Sure.
And that's not being, and that's, to me, that's being real with yourself. You're not a one-off. You're a unique individual in your own rights, but your situation itself, there's a lot of people in this world. I'm sure you'll come across someone who's experienced the same thing.
Going through the same exact thing. Well, listen, brother, I certainly appreciate everything that you've done for our country, but I appreciate your time with the podcast, and I wish you nothing but the best and continued success, and keep the athletic feats up, and certainly God bless, and thanks for being part of the Hazard Ground.
Oh, thank you for having me on.
You've been listening to the Hazard Ground Podcast, hosted by Mark Zeno and produced by Matt Pasquarella. If you have an interesting story to tell and you'd like to be on the show, send us an email at hazardgroundpodcast@gmail.com. And if you like the show, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.